Hi, my name is Hira Ali, and I will be presenting the engine pre-flight. This presentation will go over some of the things like why the engine should be checked, what the components are, and how to check the components if they're in mint condition, and what to do if failures occur within the engine and who to go to. So, a basic overview of the engine. The engine should get the most attention because it is the main source of flight for your aircraft. I don't see why you would be flying without an engine. You should look for anything that doesn't look right. These things could include like fresh oils, loose wires, connectors, or parts that don't look like the way that they should. If you think something isn't right, you should call a mechanic or check it out, or look into your POH, your aircraft's POH, and see what it says. When you're inspecting the engine, the first thing you should probably check for is the oil levels and the overall engine condition. Air filters and intakes, they should be free and opened. They should be free of excess oils, grease, dirt, bugs, and other sort of contaminants. Dripping oil and excessive soot behind the exhaust pipes could indicate problems. Some aircraft may drip oil from the crack case breather on shutdown, so that's something to look out for. When you open the engine compartment, you should first check for bird nests. Make sure there's no birds inhabited in there, and any sort of sticks or nests that they've made out of sticks. You should get rid of them. Or any sort of oil spilled all over your machinery. This oil could be a leakage of something, so you gotta make sure it's not leaking from your aircraft. If the engine has been started for more than 7 hours, or has not been started for more than 7 hours, you should do an oil check prior to starting it and make sure you do not overfill the oil. To check the oil, you should unscrew the yellow cap. It's not hard to see, and when you pull it out, there's a dipstick that's connected to the cap. For small engines, the oil level should be 8 to 6 quarts. On the dipstick, there's small numbers that represent quarts on for the oil level on your aircraft. For the Piper Seminoles engine, the Lycoming oil capacity is 8 quarts per engine, and there is a minimum safe quantity of 2 quarts per engine. This is important to have oil maintained at full quantity for maximum endurance for flights. The engine oil should be drained and renewed every 50 hours or sooner depending on the condition. Oil cartridges should be replaced every 50 hours of operation. The time between oil and oil filter change should not exceed 4 months. When you're replacing the oil cap, make sure it's not too tight. Just finger tight should be fine. From time to time, oil can get trapped within the engine gear case and will not show on the sight gauge or dipstick. For a proper oil check, the engine should first be monitored. Should be first motored up to 15%. Or with a low battery, the propeller should be pulled through by hand to cause the residue in the gearbox to be scavenged back into the oil tank. The best time to check the oil level is within the 1 hour after shutdown, when oil is distributed throughout the engine as it is in operations and near operating temperature. Be careful when you're opening the dipstick cap. The oil can be very hot and it could cause a mess, or even worse, cause an injury. You should regularly check the oil pressure. Make sure it's at good temperatures and stuff. When you're checking the spark plugs, you should make sure that they are tightly connected to the cylinders, and there are 2 spark plugs per cylinder. You should try to twist and see if they get loose with your hand. If they do, that's not good. But if they don't get loose, that's okay, because they shouldn't get loose with your hand. They can only get loosened by a wrench. It shouldn't be loose for you to open it with your hands. Uh, for for the checking the magnetos in the engine, you should first make sure they are turned off. If the magnetos are hot, it only takes a couple of inches of the propeller to move to start the engine. You should make sure all the wires are attached to the magnetos, the ignition wires, and this includes like the hot wire that goes to the battery. And you should just make sure that there are no loose wires or anything unusual. You should do a mag check too, just to make sure what the different RPM drops are for your left mag and right mag, and then both mags together too. If one of them is significantly higher, you should get it checked out too. For brake fluids in the fuel tank, first you should tap on the brake fluid reservoir with your finger from the bottom all the way to the top to the fluid line. You're gonna hear a change in sound when you reach the fluid level, and if it's near the top, that means it's good level for flight. You should make sure the brake fluid isn't dripping from the caliber. If it is, it means the caliber O-rings is not functioning properly, or it may even have popped out of its groove. If this happens, your brakes will not work properly, and you should get it checked out from a mechanic. You should make sure all your wires are connected and secured to your fuel pump. All fuel tanks should be protected from vibration or anything that causes deterioration or leakage, and should be able to bear the fuel expansion, which results from heat. So like in a summer day, it will expand, and you shouldn't overfill it, otherwise it will start leaking. To reduce this problem, you should probably place baffles inside the fuel tanks. The fuel tank in the Piper Seminole has a maximum capacity of 55 gallons, and there are 2 tanks, so the aircraft holds up to 110 gallons. Finally, it's to check for engine failures. These engine failures can be caused by mechanical problems in the engine itself. This could be like damage to like portions of the turbine or oil leaks, as well as like damage from outside the engine, which could be like the fuel pump problems or fuel contamination. If the engine fails before liftoff, you should abort the flight. If the engine failure occurs just after liftoff, the pilot should make a decision. Is there enough runway to achieve an emergency runway landing? Or is it an off-field landing, or is an off-field landing required? Once an engine catches fire, the flight crew has a number of responses at their disposal. The first thing the pilot will do is shut down the engine, which cuts off the fuel supply and like doesn't like make the fire keep running and blazing. The crew can then like apply dry chemical extinguishers to the engine. Not only does this keep the engine from eating away chemicals, it also robs the fire from the fuel. These are my sources that I got all my information from to make this presentation. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment below and I'll gladly respond to you. Thanks for watching.